Welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Let's talk money.
And welcome to the Money Mastermind Show. Tonight, we are talking about financial goals. And with us is our normal cast and crew on the Money Mastermind Show. We have Kyle Prevost of youngandthrifty.ca, Miranda Marquit of Planting Money Seeds, Peter Anderson of Bible Money Matters, and Tom Drake of the Canadian Finance Blog. I'm Glenn Craig of Free From Broke, and I'll be moderating tonight. We have a special guest tonight. We have Eric Rosenberg of Narrowbridge Finance and the brand new Personal Profitability Podcast. Welcome to our show, Eric.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So we've just had the new year, and as that happens, you have a slew of new goals and resolutions that everybody seems to make. And chief among those, or a popular one among them, is financial goals. So let's talk about that and see what we can do to make sure that if you're going to make a financial goal this year, you have a good shot at actually keeping it. So based on the experience of our group here, what kinds of financial goals tend to be the most popular?
Save more, pay down debt. I mean, aren't those like the basics?
There you go. Invest more, save more, pay down debt. Yeah.
Those are pretty popular ones. Any others that you guys know of?
Well, for popular, I think that about covers it. I mean, I know what I do, but
I also had make better financial decisions, maybe just learn more about personal finance. But yeah, I think you guys are right. Probably save more and pay off debt.
I think there's probably some very specific goals in terms of I want to save enough to go on a trip, or I want to save enough to do this or that, and maybe a tinge of desperation ones as well. God, I have to get out of credit card debt this year, even though that's not really a game plan at all. That's just more of a prayer. But
yeah, there's probably a lot of those Hail Mary type of goals that are out there. And so let's go down that road there. I think that is a main reason why a lot of goals don't succeed. And I think that's because we make those big, giant goals and we just say we're going to do some big, grand thing and leave it at that. And then at the end of a month or two, it kind of just fizzles out because we really don't have any particular plan. So what can we do to actually set up our goals to succeed?
Well, something that I like to do when I make any kind of goal, I like to make them small and specific and achievable, and I kind of ladder them out so they get more difficult. I usually give myself some low-hanging fruits right away, if your goal's saving, let's say, start with save $10 a month, or set up a saving auto pay, something that you can do easily that isn't going to cost you, $10,000 or something, and start with that small goal. And then build up from there. And once you've gotten that $10, you feel really good, and it inspires you to do a little more.
Yeah, a big part of the goals, right, isn't that you're actually trying to find the money out of nowhere, but it's probably getting over your own psychology to actually do the thing, isn't it?
Totally. It's if everyone. If it were so easy to magically get out of credit card debt and wave your magic wand and say, I'm going to get out of debt this year, everyone would be debt-free, but it's not that easy. So if you say, I want to get this one card paid off that has a balance that you could definitely pay off that year and you can afford, that'll start you on the right path to getting to debt-free. And it might take more than a year. New Year's is a popular time to look at goals, but you should be focusing on this every day of the year, not just in January.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is, we get to the beginning of the year and people make all these resolutions that they want to achieve, but like you guys already kind of said, they don't really make any manageable plan to actually make those things come to fruition. San Diego Reader said that 88% of New Year's resolutions never are achieved. I actually thought that number was surprising. I thought maybe it'd be even fewer than that, but most people just are not planning for those goals to actually happen. Somebody a few years ago introduced me to an idea called SMART goals. That's SMART. So that would mean your goals are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So they're specific. You're having a specific goal, like not just I'm going to lose weight. Instead you would have a specific goal. I'm going to lose 15 pounds in the next 2 months. And again, it's time bound, so it's within a certain time frame. You're checking up on it. You're measuring your success, and you're not making your goals so outlandish that you're never going to be able to do it. You're not going to say I'm going to lose 200 pounds in 3 months or something like that.
That's what's nice about what Eric said about kind of working your way up and how much you save. It's the same as losing weight. Like you're more likely to be able to say I'm going to work out 5 minutes a day until you kind of build up the habit, than to say I'm going to work out an hour a day. And yeah, debt's exactly the same way. I think debt's probably the biggest resolution that I see coming to my site. And it's so tied similar to losing weight, where people have this bad habit that they want to get rid of, and they're very similar, and people probably bite off of way too much more than they can chew.
Nice way to combine the two there. But they are very similar. All right, we make these big giant. I'm going to lose a lot of weight, or I'm going to save a lot of money, and they are similar in that the time that you spend, or the money that you spend, or the food that you eat. It's like these things. It wastes and puts you backwards. And I think you don't need to be afraid of big goals like that. I mean, those are certainly valuable, but then to break them down and as Eric said, make them small and easy and build on your psychology there. Very effective. What tools have worked for you guys? How have you set up goals in the past to make them actually work?
Well, I got to the point where I just started making just fewer goals. When I was younger, yeah. But when I was, I feel like I'm talking like I'm an old person. But when I was younger, I would have this whole list of things as like, remake my entire self in 1 year, right? This whole list of things that I just had to accomplish. And I started looking at it and realized that, I don't really have to do everything in 1 year, and I don't have to completely remake myself as a person or remake my finances completely in 1 year. And I started whittling down my goals, and now I'm to the point where I pretty much just have, 3 or 4 major goals in different areas of my life. And this year I have one financial goal, one life goal, and one now I can't remember the other one. Oh, and one writing goal. And so I just have 3 big goals. And the whole idea is I pick one big goal, and kind of like what Eric was saying, was break it down and work on it the whole year. So I decide which, like in finances, which aspect of my finances is the most important thing for me to fix and work on this year. And then I break that down into a plan that I can implement all year, so I can make progress on that goal. And there are some things with finances especially that you're not going to be able to fix in 1 year. And so then I kind of plan ahead to be saying, I'm going to work on this for the next 2 to 3 years, and break that down and make like this bigger plan. So I think that kind of helps too, is to say, I don't have to do everything and cram it all into 1 year. I can take this 1 year to work on this one aspect of my life that's most important to me right now.
Nice. Any other systems that are popular among you guys?
I think it's just about being accountable to someone. Sorry, Eric. I'll get you in right away. It's just about being accountable to someone. I find that the sort of analogy to working out, if I run into people all the time that say, I'm going to run a marathon someday. It's on my bucket list. I'd love to run a marathon. But the people that like tell all their friends, like, I'm going to run a marathon, like barring serious injury, I'm there. There's like a pride and a personal identity tied up in meeting this goal, and you're going to put way more effort into that goal. So obviously with financial stuff, it's a little bit harder for people to put it all out there, but I think if you maybe have someone and you're both dealing with a debt problem, or you're in a support group of some kind, or you're in like a savings club or an investment club, if you're accountable to someone with your goals, I think you're going to see a much higher success rate.
And I think also you don't have to necessarily say, hey, I got to pay off this $7,000 credit card, but you could probably tell your buddies, hey, look, you know what, I'm not going to be able to go out every Friday night and paint the town red. I might have to cut back a little bit and do some cheaper things.
I'm only going out on Saturday nights now.
Maybe you can't do Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. You just pick the one of the three.
Just one a week.
Yeah.
One set of tools that I really like to use that's helped me a lot is having a to-do list, and I've a couple different ways I like to do that to help me reach my goals. One is I use a whiteboard, which I have right next to my desk, not in this current office because I just moved in, but in general I like having a whiteboard. So I really like erasing things when they're done. It gives me a feeling like I conquered something. So having a way to check something off, I think, is great. Some people like paper and pen. And if you really want to go fancy, there's some digital options I've used. One, I'd say the most basic, is called Remember the Milk. It's an online to-do list app. And if you're doing like what Miranda was saying and really break it down into sub-things you want to track, you can enter it into, send you an email maybe once a week or once a month, and you can go in there and check off your to-dos as you've done them. Another one that I really like using now, it's kind of the deluxe to-do list, is called Asana. And it's a fully featured to-do list manager that you can even work with teams. So if you have a goal with your wife or your husband or anybody else, if you want to do that accountability thing, you can share what you're working on in there so other people can see it, or you can work on it together. And you can do sub-goals. So let's say you wanted to run a marathon. You can set up a recurring weekly run 5 miles a day and have it pop up and email you or remind you, have you run your 5 miles yet today? And you can check that off, and as you go, you can do whatever you want with it. Pretty much, you can set it up to help you reach whatever your goal is.
Eric, you mentioned you mentioned being able to erase on the whiteboard. The other part of the whiteboard I really like is just writing it down in the first place. Just physically writing it down is makes it so much more real than just having it up in your head that this is something you want to do. So you write it down, you can see it, and then it's really nice to erase it off after.
And put it somewhere you're going to see it regularly too. That'll motivate you to get it off the list. Like if you put it, in a cupboard, in a closet, around the corner, like where Harry Potter used to live, you'll never see it. But under the stairs, the cupboard under the stairs. But if you put it in your kitchen or your office or your closet, you can hook it to your bathroom mirror. Put it somewhere you're going to see it and feel really motivated about it.
You just reminded me of I forget which book I was reading it in, but it said something like they asked everybody to track in a journal every day what they ate, right? And they did this against a control group and such, and they found out that the people who actually watched every day what they were eating were able to lose weight. Now, the side effect of it is that they found out that people were actually starting to take better care of their finances as well. It had this nice side effect there. And obviously you just track your money as well, but I think just tracking and seeing where everything is going has a huge benefit if you want to take care of your finances too.
Yeah, and I think part of that is just the consciousness that tracking it every day brings to the table. If you have to track it every day and watch what you're doing, then that does kind of makes you more conscious about your habits and how you're doing things. And I think that really could easily spill over into your money and help you become more mindful with your spending.
One thing I like that Eric was talking about earlier is actually setting up reminders and scheduling things to happen on your to-do list, and getting those reminders. I was reading a study at one point that they talked about. They had two different groups. They had the one group where they gave them all sorts of materials to read and motivational material, and trying to lose weight. And then the other group, they basically just told them to sit down and make a schedule and set up reminders for themselves, and put schedules in place, an actual schedule of what they were going to do as far as exercise and eating and so forth. And of the two groups, the one that had motivational stuff didn't achieve their goal nearly as often as the group that actually set down a schedule and said, I'm going to exercise at 6 a.m. every day. So I think setting up an actual plan of what you're going to do for those goals to achieve them is really important. And setting up reminders for yourself, or if you have a financial goal, maybe actually setting up automatic deposits, actually taking steps that'll put that plan in action.
I think any kind of system like that is really good. You just have to think through the way you interact with the world around you, Like my wife would say I'm addicted to my phone. So someone who uses their phone as much as I do, I'd want my reminders to come to my phone because it will be in my pocket and I will see it and I won't forget. Somebody who is not into their phone or ignores the little notifications that pop up, it might be better to put a pen and paper on your nightstand if you read before bed every night, or make it work for you in the way you already live. You don't have to do like what I do. I was saying I use Asana all the time. That doesn't work for most people. It works for some people. And if that is you, then do that. But if not, find what does work for you.
Yeah, I found one of the things that I like about Asana, I use it as well, is that you have the web app. So if I'm working, I have it right there on the computer staring at me in the face that I can check things off. But I also have it on my phone. So if I'm on the go and I think of something that I want to do, or if I want to check into something, it's right there so that I know I have it pretty much anywhere I go, because I know if I have either my computer or if I'm not there, I'm going to have my phone. Whereas like if I'm just writing a to-do list down, it's going to be on a Post-it note somewhere where I'm just going to have it maybe right there. But like you say, it's a to-do list is only as good as what you actually do with it. And if you don't do it, it's just kind of sitting there for posturing. And it could. I found also that if your to-do list gets a little too long, you really start hating it too.
I get that.
Any other tools? Has anybody here tried a 30-day habit of any sort?
Only bad ones.
For 30 days?
I've done a couple 2-week projects just to see how I've liked them. They weren't these weren't finance goals, but like when Google Chrome came out, I was like, oh, that's everyone's saying how cool it is, but I'm so hooked into the way I use my bookmarks in Firefox. There's no way I could ever change from that. So I hid all of the icons for Firefox. I didn't uninstall it from my computer, but I deleted every shortcut, and I put Chrome shortcuts in their place, and I put a calendar reminder. I said, in 2 weeks, if I miss Firefox, I'll go back. If not, I'll stick with what I'm doing. And that's how I stopped wearing a watch every day. I thought that my watch was annoying me. I was like, well, I'll see if I can live without it for 2 weeks, and I did. And now it's been a year. So setting that kind of a system's worked for me for a few things.
Yeah, I think there's a good point in there in that you can't be afraid to experiment and try different things too, and see, like you said, you got to see what works for you. I've heard one productivity technique, and Lifehacker had featured this, and it was Seinfeld's don't break the chain. So what he did was he knew that in order to be a really good comedian, he would have to write continually. So he set up a whiteboard for every day of the month, and he made sure that every day he was going to write some joke. Didn't have to be great, but he had to write something. And every day he would cross out when he did it. And after a while, he would start to see on the board that it was a chain. And you don't want to break that chain once you've gotten some momentum. And after a while, it's not even something where you're trying to make sure to mark the board off. You're just getting into that momentum where you're just doing it, and all of a sudden it becomes this habit. And I think you could probably apply that to a lot of different goals. But if you want to track your finances and stay on top of things, that's one thing you could maybe set up so that you're attacking it. Any of you know of any other tools that you use specifically for personal finances in order to really stay on top of things and make sure you're achieving your goals?
Yeah, for me, I say this on almost every episode. I use YNAB.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for that to come. Here it comes.
We gave you that softball there.
Why aren't they paying us?
Yeah, I use
I have
YNAB.
Jesse's email if you need it.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not like we haven't ever met the guy.
Yeah. No, I set up a budget every year at the beginning of the year, and so if we have financial goals, we have those in the budget, and we set up amounts that we want to save every month towards that. This year, we're working on rebuilding our emergency fund because 2 years ago we bought a new house, and we were saving every penny for that down payment on the house, and we also took some of the money from our emergency fund. So now we know we need to resave that emergency fund, so we know we need to save quite a bit of money every month towards that if we want to reach that goal. So we set that goal up in YNAB, and now we're going to set up the automatic savings deductions to go into our bank account. And so you actually set up the stuff to make the goal happen. So
what does YNAB do actually to help you with that goal? I mean, because it sounds like you're already setting up the automatic deductions.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that the YNAB portion of it that
the YNAB is good for helping you track your goals and make sure you're achieving them. You know, it does become a little bit more automatic when you actually set up the automatic deductions. Not everybody does that necessarily, but that way you can see when you're overspending because you're tracking. You can see you're overspending and you need to cut back in other areas so that you can attain that goal, even if the automatic deduction is happening. Again, that's, I think, pretty important with the goals is to make sure you're checking back on your goal and reviewing your goals at regular intervals to see how you're doing and whether maybe you need to revise your goals or something along those lines.
Nice. I have YNAB. I just haven't opened it up to try it yet. I will get to that this year. That's one of my goals.
Is it a resolution?
Not so much a resolution. I'm actually currently using Quicken for Mac.
Oh, why?
Because it works. I mean,
I tried Quicken before. I've been a very, very long time Mint user since 2007. So I have like 25,000 transactions or something in there. And I've tried a bunch of other tools. My other favorite, if you're looking specifically for budgeting, I think Mint's pretty good too. A lot of people don't love Intuit. So if you are one of those people, another great option that I use, which is more investing focused, is Personal Capital. And they have free tools. So if you're, I'd like to say if you're in the get out of debt phase, Mint's probably a little better, or YNAB, or there's some other good tools like Ready for Zero. But if you're on the build wealth side, once you're already debt free, I think Personal Capital is another great tool.
And I like Money Dance. It's close to what Quicken 2005 used to be. For Quicken, I'll try to mintify itself. So.
Minty fresh.
Yeah, something.
Any others out there? I think Future Advisor has something that's similar in line to what Personal Capital is. And
Future Advisor is more specific to how to invest. It doesn't do all the same level of tracking. Whereas Personal Capital will pull in every account, checking credit, investment. Yeah, so I've used that one too. I actually have if you're interested, I have a post going up this Monday on a list of alternatives to Mint.com if you're not a Mint fan. So if you go to narrowbridge.net on Monday or any day after that, there will be a post all about Mint alternatives that you can look at.
Oh, I've already done that on Investor Junkie.
Well, so go to Investor Junkie and check it out. And if you find the list to be a little incomplete, you can go to my site.
That's right.
Sounds good.
I have not written anything like that, so just throw it.
You can go to Kyle's site and learn many other great things that aren't about Mint alternatives.
That's right.
You know, this is the first year, or in the past year, because we're really quick in the year, where I've actually tracked so finely all my spending, and I've found that it is very eye-opening to see actually where your money's going. You know, I always kind of eyeballed it, and just, you know, we had the money to cover it, so we always knew, and we didn't need to keep it so exact. But now that we're using Quicken, and it could be any of these other apps, programs as well, it really does kind of show you where the money's going and where maybe you have a lot of waste and such. So it is a very effective technique to really take a good look at your finances and see how you can make things better or more efficient.
Yeah, and one of the things I do, and I never connect my accounts. I don't connect my bank accounts to my personal finance software. I leave it so that I have to go in and do it manually. And I think that's one of the things that YNAB's really famous for too, is that whole manual entering. But yeah, I like to go in and enter it manually because it really does make you stop and think about how you're spending your money. So I like to save the receipts from the week, and then go once a week, go in and enter them all in and see where it's going, and I have to categorize it by hand. So the act of putting it in by hand really makes you think about what you're doing and kind of connects you with your money in a way that just having it pulled, to me personally, doesn't.
I do the same thing.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
'Cause I do all mine automatically, but I go through once a day just to make sure everything looks right. I have caught fraud transactions that way, but I'll say it's pretty eye-opening if you use any of these types of programs for a long period of time, because you can go back and look at trends and what your spending habits have been. I was actually curious not too long ago. I typed in Chipotle to see how much money I'd spent on burritos, and I could have paid for a trip to Europe with how much I've spent at Chipotle over. I think it was over 7 years. It's a lot of burritos. I went through college and grad school using this. So
I think my Starbucks is very similar to that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, YNAB recently changed their mobile app, so now when you enter a transaction, it actually pops up the budget category that you just entered. So if you just entered a restaurant you ate out or something, it'll pop up how much you've spent in that budget category that month. So it's a big reminder, oh my God, I've spent $1,200 on restaurants this month. I better cut back a little bit.
Yeah.
So.
And to tell the people out there, you don't be afraid of having to spend a lot of time on these apps. You're not going to get lost in them. You can. I mean, certainly I check it. When I first started using it, I was checking it at least every day, and now every couple of days. And I do try to make sure that there's a manual part of it where I'm going in and making those purchases and putting it in there before it pulls automatically, so that I know it's there. But a lot of them are pretty automatic, and you really just need to kind of check in on them. The more you can use it, and the more you use it well, the more I think it'll serve you. But it's not like you're going to be sitting down bogged and not be able to do anything else because you're busy with your finances and whatnot. Because I think a lot of people just don't want to spend a lot of time on their money either, and I think that's a big problem.
Oh yeah, so I mean, really, your goal should be to, actually just look at your money, I guess, see what's going on with it. I think
a big pile that's growing in your vault.
The big Scrooge McDuck pool.
Yeah,
that's what I was picturing when I said vault. Diving into my pile of money.
Yeah, mine's like a little jar. But, so let's talk about that. Automating is a great way to not spend a lot of time on your money and also make a lot of goals happen without you having to do anything with it. So what are some things that you guys have automated with your finances? Does anybody here automate everything, or what do you choose? What do you pick and choose? Miranda, you had your hand up there saying you automate everything?
Pretty much almost everything. We automate the retirement account, the emergency savings, the loan payments, like for the student loans and such, insurance, all that stuff is all automated. So it just all comes out automatically. The taxes, like the quarterly taxes that I pay, I actually break it down to a monthly payment and then have it automatically transferred into a high yield savings account, and that's what I do with my taxes. So pretty much most of my set things are all taken care of automatically, either through an automatic transfer or on the credit card, and then I pay it off. So I think that's a really good way to go ahead and set up your goals, like you were saying. But I think one of the important things you have to remember when you automate, especially if you're doing like a savings goal or trying to put in more for retirement, is that you want to up that, after a few months. You don't want to just forget about it and leave it as, as Eric was saying, you start out with $10, and that's really good, but you don't want to. That's not going to be enough over time. Eventually, you're going to have to up that. And so sometimes the danger of automating is that you forget that you need to keep moving forward.
Now, some 401k providers for your day jobs will offer some kind of automatic increases. So the way I've set mine up, I through my direct deposit, I actually split it, and I don't know the exact amount, but last year it was like $211 and some cents, because over 26 pay periods, that is exactly the amount to max a Roth IRA in a year. So I did that automatically to hit my max, and my 401k I set with 1%, and once a year, around the time of year you get your annual merit increases, if you're lucky enough to get one of those at your company, I have a 1% auto increase. So whether I get a raise or not, I'm going to increase more and put more into my retirement accounts.
That's really cool. I like that.
I think that's also important when you're not doing that. Like Miranda says, it just kind of sits there and it doesn't really kind of do much else. But you also get into this habit of thinking that you're taking care of everything. And then as you're making more money as time goes on, you get stuck in this lifestyle inflation because you think you have the money and you're not really putting it maybe where you need to put it. So instead of maybe putting more into savings or retirement or investing, you're just kind of buying more stuff around the place. So it's kind of nice when you're upping the ante with a lot of those automatic savings accounts.
Yep. It's a good idea to automate things when you can, but it's also very important that you're paying attention. The automating isn't a reason to just kind of be lazy and let things ride. It's only a tool to enable you to make sure things happen, that your goals are taking place. But you do still need to, on a regularly scheduled basis, sit down and actually make sure your finances are happening. Otherwise, you're going to have all sorts of problems.
Do any of you use anything like a Google Calendar to schedule reminders or anything to say, hey, you need to go peek in or do something?
I have Asana tell me that. It sends me an email.
So you set it up beforehand that like every quarterly or weekly or monthly, it should the calendar should send you something.
I have certain monthly, like once a month, on the first of the month, I get an email every day from Asana saying, here's your things to do for the day. That's the way I set it up. And every month on the first of the month, it says check and update your net worth, which I've been tracking for about 6-7 years now. Since I started grad school, was when I started tracking my net worth because I was spending all of my net worth to go to grad school. But ever since then, every month on the first of the month, I have been updating and checking that, so I know kind of the big picture and how I'm doing. And I've also set up bill reminders for certain things. I do have almost everything on autopay, but the couple things that I don't, I have just pop-ups that remind me once a month that say, hey, pay this bill.
Yeah, I have a similar system too. Like Peter said, I don't like to have everything automated. Like my credit card, I don't want that to automatically be paid because it's variable, and I want to make sure that there's not anything, maybe fraud in there, and I want to know exactly what it is. Some other things, like student loan, that's just automatic. That's always going to be the same amount. So as long as I know I have the checking account covered, it could always go through. I don't need to necessarily check it. But something like the credit card, I want to always look at it and see. But I also have a reminder set up about 5 days before it's due to just shoot me an email and say, hey, this is due. And I have that through both my credit card and Google Calendar, just because I like to have that back up there. So we've talked a lot about goals, and I think we have a lot of techniques here that people can use to set up goals and really get going at them. But inevitably, like Peter said with that stat where 88% of resolutions tend to fail, if that was what it was, and I think I'm recalling it more or less correctly, inevitably a goal is going to fail, a resolution, a goal. So what happens then? You know, what does a person do if it just kind of doesn't do it? You know, they say, "Oh, here it is. It's January. I'm gonna save. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do whatever." Even if they made things specific and they followed what we're talking about, you know, come March, it's out the window. So now what? What should they do?
Well, it's really up to you if you want to live a poor life or a rich life. If your goals are financial goals to get out of debt or whatnot, no one's going to do it for you. That's and you know, unless you have very, very generous parents or something, no one's going to pay your credit card bills off. I know mine wouldn't. They'd laugh if I suggested it.
Mine too.
I think most of us would probably have the same kind of reaction. So, you know, you have to hold yourself accountable. And, you know, if, you know, it's funny to joke about how many people are in the gym the last week of the year because everyone, you know, they're all in their January 1st signing up, making their resolution. I'm really going to go this year. And so many of them really don't. But with your finances, you know, I mean, it's bad to put your health on hold. I don't want to minimize the value of taking care of yourself and going to a gym or whatever you need to do for your health. But your finances, I mean, that is a huge part of your life. And if you don't take care of them, you're going to end up in a world of hurt later on. And, you know, you can only sweep it away under the rug and ignore it for so long before, you know, if you don't pay your car loan, someone's going to take your car, or if you don't pay your mortgage, someone's going to take your house. This isn't stuff you can just ignore. So you have to really remind yourself and stay motivated and find that system that works for you, because no one's going to do it for you.
Oh, and I think one of the things we run into is this black and white thinking that you've either accomplished your goal or you failed. And I think people get to March and they're like, oh, things aren't going as well as I thought, so my life is over and the goal is done and I should just give up. And I think, while it's really nice to, make a new beginning and it's a new year and that's really great, I think it's important to remember that you can set goals and you can make progress no matter the time of year. So if you find that you've gotten off track, I think that it's important to step back, take a look at it and say, well, why am I off track? First of all, was my goal realistic when I set it? Was I being completely unrealistic? Was I trying to pay off, $20,000 of debt in 6 months? Yes, it's doable, but in your situation, is it really that realistic? I mean, really? And so I think, part of it is to step back and say, well, why did this goal fail? Why am I having a problem? And how can I tweak it so that I'm making progress toward my ultimate end? Rather than saying, oh, well, it's all over and, it's worthless and I won't try again until next year. There's no reason to do that.
Yeah, it's okay to fail at a goal. At least you're trying. You got to get in there and do it. And I don't think any goal is perfect when you start out. So you go in there and you say, this is what I want to do. And then as you're doing it, you can't necessarily, you could try to map out everything that's going to happen in front of you, but you don't know what's going to happen every day and how you're going to really react to it. So you have to go in there and readjust to it. And then you make those changes and you just attack it again. You figure out what works. If you can't, let's say, pay off $20,000, can you pay off $2,000? And then if that works, you go from there. Maybe you could pay $5,000 off from there. But you tweak. It's always tweaking.
Also remember.
I think that was. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, okay, I'll go. So I also remember. The saying, if you shoot for the moon and miss, you'll end up among the stars. There's some realistic applications of that. Like if you go back to old blog posts of mine when I was a horrible writer, so don't go back to them, but they're out there. I had at one point said, I want an 850 credit score. I want a perfect credit score. But over time I realized there's no benefit of an 850 credit score over a 730 credit score. Once you hit that excellent range, you're always going to get the best interest rates and deals. So why should I shoot for an 850 credit score anymore? So I've changed that goal to just stay in the excellent category, but I've done it, and now I have an almost 800 credit score. So, my old goal was kind of a pipe dream. No one actually really, I think, has a perfect credit score. I don't know if there's anyone alive with an exact perfect credit score, but if you have a really good one, it's it's still a good thing, and that can go with any financial goal you have.
I think along the same lines is the saying that perfect is the enemy of good.
Right.
I know I've in the past didn't attack certain things because I was always trying to get it to be just right before I started. If I can't do it at such and such a level, but then as I got older, I realized, wait a minute, I'm missing out on doing anything because I'm trying to wait for the perfect circumstances. So sometimes you just got to go in there knowing that it might not be the best that it could possibly be, but at least I'm doing it. And then we could go from there.
Yeah, it's a quote by General George Patton. He said, a good plan violently executed is better than a perfect plan next week. And, I've heard from a variety of different sources that when you're working towards your goals, it's important to be flexible. If life is getting in the way of one of your goals and makes your goal unachievable, be flexible enough to know that you need to sit down and maybe set a new goal, and set that new goal and just start working towards it. Make that one a reality instead.
So I know a couple of you have already talked about some of your financial goals for the new year. Would any of you like to discuss one that you're planning on doing and how you plan to achieve it?
Yeah, I kind of already touched on mine, but we're trying to resave our emergency fund because we were going to do this last year, but we had a lot of health issues last year, spending $8,000 or $10,000 in medical bills along with a bunch of other stuff. So we're going back to that goal again this year. We're going to try to save up 8 months of expenses in an emergency fund, and we're going to sit down and figure out how much we need to save exactly to accomplish that, and then we're going to set up automatic deposits in our savings account to make that happen. So,
Sounds like a good plan.
Yeah, I'm getting married this year and finishing up a post-grad degree. So my goal is just to stay within the budget that we've created for those. And I'm learning more and more every day that requires a lot of little decisions that I had mostly not anticipated. So it's a little bit more complex a goal than I had started with, but it is a smart goal, and I hope to accomplish it.
And I'm guessing those complexities are regarding the wedding and not your post-grad degree.
How would you ever guess?
Although one is pretty expensive on its own. Somehow, when you add wedding to anything,
one can cripple you and put you into real debt, and the other one's your wedding. So yeah.
I was gonna
Nice save there. Nice save there, Kyle.
but
I was just gonna say, I planned my wedding in 2 months, and do you know how easy it is to stay within budget if you don't have any time to keep adding stuff to your wedding? You're just done. It has to be done.
Anybody else with some financial goals they want to throw out there?
I set my big goal this year is based on earning on the side. I think it's an important thing. We've talked a lot about debt so far and savings, but I think one of the best ways to get out of debt and to save more is to just make more money. And you can't. It's easier said than done, but I think everyone in this call or on this mastermind show is doing that in some way, and I think it's something everybody can do. You don't have to all start a blog about personal finance. I hope you all don't. There's already plenty of us doing that.
It's
so
not always lucrative as you may
Very
think.
crowded space.
It takes a lot of time to make money doing that, so don't think it's a get-rich-quick thing. None of us are getting rich quick doing it.
Although it could be a way to keep accountable.
That's true. That's why many people started. But you can turn hobbies into income. If you're a photographer, you can sell stock photos online, or you can do wedding shoots or pictures of people's kids. If whatever hobby you have, there's probably some way to make money on it. So my big goal this year, I set last year I'd set myself a $2,500 a month goal for online income, and I've been toying with the idea because I've hit it a few months in a row of raising that and setting a full year goal that's a little bit higher.
Nice. All right, so I think we've done a great job in going over goals in general. And what we like to do here on the Money Mastermind Show is do a final word on our topic. So we'll go around here and we'll all just give a little summary on what we're thinking about as a final word on financial goals. So Tom, if you'll give us your final word on financial goals.
Yeah. I really like setting goals, but I really hate New Year's resolutions. I think it's just so much extra pressure that people put on themselves. Like, on this day, I'm going to solve everything in my life. It would be much better to sort of just set goals as you go. Like, when you see a need, like, oh, this is getting out of control, set the goal then. Don't wait until January 1st to make something special of it. And since we're past January 1st, all the more reason not to wait.
And Peter, what's your final word?
My final word is just to sit down and make reasonable goals that are achievable and specific enough to be motivating. Again, like I talked about earlier, don't just say you're going to lose weight. Make a specific goal of losing 40 pounds by the 30th of June. Write down your goals, share your goals with others to keep you accountable, and then actually develop a plan and put it in action to achieve those goals. Don't just let the goals sit on a piece of paper in your office to be looked at on December 31st and set you to tears. So there you go.
Miranda, your final word on financial goals.
Yeah, I think you really need to take a look at what's important to you and what aspect of your life or your finances you want to improve. I think you need to look and look at your values. I always go back to that. I always go back to your values and your priorities and what matters in your life, and set goals around what's going to improve your life and what's going to improve your finances. So pick the one thing that's the most important to you and start working on that.
Kyle, your final word on financial goals.
I think my final word on goals in general is when you initially set that goal, work really, really hard to break through that initial inertia. Because if you can sort of break through that and see the results, that's what will keep you going. I forget what Freakonomics episode it was, but they were talking about sort of the results that then have a positive feedback loop. So work really hard to get that momentum started, and I think it'll carry you a long way.
And Eric, if you'll close out our final word with your final word on financial goals.
Sure. I'd say start small. Make it something that you can really do so you get a win really quickly and feel good about it and want to keep going, and then set up a system that will help support you along the way so you can reach all those goals for the long term and don't forget about it. And one just little piece of motivation you might enjoy that really helped me focus on how I do goals is a book by a guy named Chris Guillebeau called The Art of Nonconformity. And there's a lot of other things that I find inspirational and useful in the book too, but there's a section on reading a life list, which is a less morbid way to think of a bucket list. So rather than thinking about what you're going to do before you die, think about what you want to do while you're alive. And going through that process once a year to update my life list has been a big motivator for me. And I've actually done some huge goals in my life, like international trips and things like that I might not have done otherwise. So, don't start small, but think big too.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for coming on the show with us tonight, Eric.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For our audience out there, can you tell them where they can find a little bit more about you and your work online?
Sure. So I've had a personal finance blog for about 6 years. You can find it at narrowbridge.net. It's called Narrowbridge Finance. You're very soon to be redirected to a new name. I just got a new name for the site. It's going to be at personalprofitability.com. And just today, the very first episode of my podcast went live, the Personal Profitability Podcast. So if you really like the sound of my voice, you have 45 minutes more waiting out there for you.
Well, congratulations on
Thank you.
releasing that, and I'm sure it's full of great stuff. I'll make sure to get to listen to it myself. So everybody, we had a great panel tonight and a lot of great talk on goals, and hopefully everybody will go out there and tell us what they're achieving. And please feel free to drop by the site, themoneymastermindshow.com. That's moneymastermindshow.com, and let us know what you think about goals. And until next week, be good with your money. Good night.
Thanks for joining us on the Money Mastermind Show. Get more information at moneymastermindshow.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Google+.